everybody throughout the 52nd Senate District. And as well, Mayor Tornatore and I think others are on the line as well, elected officials in Tioga. So just a pleasure to be with all of my colleagues in elected office and of course with all of you. With that, Madam Chairwoman, if you'd be so kind to just offer some remarks and some thoughts, and then I'll turn it over to Mayor Tornatore and then Mayor David.
Sure, Senator, thank you for giving us this opportunity to meet, because I don't know about you, but I never see anybody anymore. I just sit at my desk and go to work, and I miss meeting people, listening to what's going on with them and hearing their concerns, although people can still call me on the phone and email. I can get those concerns, but so it's been a rough year. Tomorrow at the legislative meeting, I'll be giving the state of the county, which is sort of an overview of what went on in 2020 and what we're looking for 21. That will be put on our YouTube channel, so you can see it afterwards if you can't attend. I do want to say thank you to you for all the work that you're doing, trying to represent our southern tier. It's very difficult to get noticed at Albany, especially being a small county, small community. And we just don't fit in the broad brush of all the rules and regulations that have come down through this COVID experience and all the other laws that have been passed in many cases. So yeah, we just kind of have to stomp our foot and make a little noise every now and then to get noticed. I do hope that sometime during this conversation, you will share with us what actually the temperature is in Albany with going on with the governor, because quite frankly, it's a big issue with me. Very disappointed that the Democrats did not step up earlier, that his behavior is absolutely not acceptable at all. And I have to tell you that through this whole COVID experience, I felt like I was living with an abuser, because he was so disrespectful to counties and cities and towns and how he talked to us and treated us. And quite frankly, I think his number's up and he's due to be corrected a little. So I just want to know what the Assembly and the Senate are thinking and doing. And so when you'll get to it. But anyway, I know there's a lot of information that you want to cover. I'll just add that through the COVID experience, we thought we were going to really take a very serious hit. We did. We started out 1 month, it was 41% loss in sales tax income. But at the end of the year, we ended up with, excuse me, just a -3%, which is really good. And our team, our county buckled down and really operated conservatively. So financially, we made out good. I think our residents have just about had it. I'm sure everybody I'm looking at now is feeling the same way. Tonight we have Cliff Valier with us, our legislator. Hello, Cliff. I can't see any other legislators on here, but I'm sure, there's a lot of people on, so I can't see them. But anyway, thanks a lot, Senator.
My absolute pleasure. Good to be with all of the members of the Tioga County Legislature. To Mayor Tornatore and Mayor David, you are co-hosts and you can unmute yourself. So Mayor Tornatore, if you'd be so kind.
Yes, thank you, Senator. I agree with Chair Saubray. You really, Senator Akshar, and 52, you have been a fantastic leader within the state. Common sense attitudes, common sense processes, but yet when the negotiation begins, we know you are a vital part of the what is now the minority party and hopefully will be the majority party soon in the next election process. I think that the AIM needs to be looked at, the state aid to municipalities. I'm going to concentrate on municipalities because we are all impacted, obviously, by the COVID situation and all that goes along with that. We watch for your guidance. My questions tonight are going to be more fiscally towards the deficit that is in the budget right now and how in the state budget, and how that's going to be reconciled to the needs of the community and the wider community, the state, and for Tioga County and the southern tier, all the southern tier. And we'll be glad for your answers. That's all I.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that very much. Cliff, you can unmute yourself as well now if you'd like to say a couple of words and say hello, and then I'll get to Mayor David. You're still muted, Cliff. I'm sorry.
There you go.
There you go.
All right. It may be better off if I was, but anyway. I just want to thank you for all your efforts and the support that you've given us in the county. We've been very blessed to have a reasonable legislature move and be fiscally responsible. But I think the string is starting to run out of the coil, so that we are looking forward to trying to at least get some stability going overall financially. And that's just an overall view.
Thank you for that. And again, Mayor David, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I would say to all my friends in Tioga County, thank you publicly for being such a good friend and a good partner to all of us, quite frankly, as we move issues throughout the 52nd Senate District, and for your really Herculean effort as the president of NICOM. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Senator. And thank you for the invitation to be here. I appreciate our personal and professional friendship. You've always been there for the city of Binghamton and every municipality and community within the district. The success we've had in Binghamton is directly a result of the partnership that we have. I'm sure some of you are probably wondering why the mayor of Binghamton and Broome County is on the Tioga County call or Zoom. But as the senator mentioned, NICOM is the New York Conference of Mayors, and NICOM represents 570 cities and villages across the state of New York. So all the villages in Tioga County, et cetera, are impacted by what happens at NICOM. And I just want to very briefly give you two quick updates financially, because these are things that directly impact the communities you live in. And the first has to do with the state budget that's currently going on right now. And I just want to tell you that NICOM has really been working with Senator Akshar and pushing back against state government, because they are trying to withhold, as Mayor Turtor said, for state aid and incentives to municipalities, also known as state. In the year 2020, they tried to withhold 20% of our aid, which has since been reduced to 5%. For the year 2021, it ranges anywhere from 2.5% to 20%, but villages and towns got a flat 20% cut. And so one of the things we've been doing with Senator Akshar and other senators and assembly members across the state through a series of direct regional Zoom meetings is pushing to make sure that in this budget, 100% of those state withholdings, our state aid, goes to the municipalities, because those municipalities need those funds for police officers, firefighters, paramedics, public works and sanitation, and the host of essential services that we all provide. So that's something that's very important, regardless of the population of your community. That money is absolutely critical, because municipalities are on the front lines of essential services. Okay, so we're advocating for all of you on that component. The second part is what you've been reading about in the paper and seeing on TV over the course of the last several days, and that's the federal stimulus package that was just passed by the Senate, which is going back to the House most likely tomorrow and going to be signed by President Biden later this week. Within that $1.9 trillion spending bill is $360 billion of direct aid to states and municipalities. So I pulled the number for Tioga County, and it looks like it's approximately $9.3 million that's going to Tioga County. And then there's a lot of other different numbers for all of the towns and villages. And I just pulled a couple. Owego is getting $2 million. Berkshire is $150,000. Barton is $920,000. Candor is $546,000. Nichols is $265,000. And there are several others on that list as well. So that's very good news for municipalities. And that's something that mayors across the state, all the mayors across the state and other elected officials have been advocating for, because this money for municipalities has been left out of every single previous stimulus bill. It's become very political, and supporting municipalities really should be bipartisan, just like we support schools and hospitals. And we need to support our municipalities for the exact same reason, because municipalities, as the chairwoman said in her opening remarks, talked about losing sales tax revenue, property tax collections can be down, water and sewer revenue is down, loss of parking revenue, et cetera. And then you have your increases in pandemic-related expenses. So that leaves elected officials with not a lot of options. It's either raising taxes or draining your reserves or furloughing or laying off employees or reducing or eliminating services or a combination of all those together. And that's why, advocating for this money directly to the municipalities was so important. And this, I understand there's some other controversial components in the overall bill, but money directly for municipalities should have been included long ago. And it is a good thing, regardless of where you live in the state of New York. And the last thing that we're working with Senator Akshar and others on is making sure that New York State doesn't turn around and, as the mayor was alluding to with state aid, say, well, since you've got all this federal money, we're just going to eliminate all of your state aid, which would still hurt the municipalities. And the state has been known to do that before. So these are some of the things that we're advocating for on your behalf that have a direct impact on your municipality and the budgets, and ultimately, the amount of property taxes you could end up paying. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Senator. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I'm really here to listen to what you have to say as well. Thank you.
Mayor, before I just give a brief update on Albany, Dan Spencer asked the question, is it up to the local municipalities how these funds are used? So maybe the chairwoman and the mayor and combination thereof or something can speak.
Sure. That's a great question. So here's what I know right now. I've been told that within 60 days of President Biden signing the bill, which should be this week, municipalities will get half of the money in 60 days. And then 12 months from then, which is 14 months from now, you'll get the other half of that money. And there are some restrictions. So right now, and I will preface this by saying we are all waiting for additional guidance from the U.S. Treasury Department, which is forthcoming shortly. But what we know so far is that it's broadband projects, water projects, sewer projects, as far as capital spending, and then revenue offsets. So any of the loss of revenue that I was just outlining, we can use that money to offset those revenues. And then there's also some language about supporting business, nonprofits, individuals that may also have suffered an economic impact as well. So ultimately, yes, it is up to the municipalities, meaning in the case of Tioga County, the Tioga County legislature will make the decision on the county funds, and then the mayors or town supervisors in your respective municipalities, along with their or their councils, used to Binghamton, their legislative councils, village councils, town councils, will make that decision as well. So, for example, in Binghamton, it's the mayor and city council, but I would not describe it as a blank check, where it's just you can use it for whatever you want to use it for. They've made very clear they don't want it to be used for pension obligations and don't want to plug it into your budget simply to just lower taxes, although there's a whole lot of ways you can use that money to end up lowering taxes as well. But we're all waiting for more specific information from the Treasury Department, which is forthcoming. Madam Chairwoman, if you want to add to any of that, please feel free.
I kind of read the information that came out of New York State Association of Counties, and it's just what you said. It did say any income from casino losses that you normally get. So Tioga County, the town of Nichols, might be affected by that, and the county would be because it was about half what we normally get. But yeah, I'd like to know the fine print too, because that's a lot of money, and we have to use it wisely.
Correct.
Yes, Mayor Tornatore.
In our situation, because I personally and our trustees are infrastructure driven, we would utilize it towards infrastructure. We have a water project that's coming up next year or the year after, and we're waiting for funding on that. And also just primarily infrastructure, not to be utilized for general expenses and those things. That's you know, my favorite term is broadband here for Tioga County too, and I know that
Yeah.
it's for Southrise also.
One of the questions I do have on this is we have a major emergency communications issue in Tioga County, and we were this close to kicking off the grant program last year. Of course, everything was frozen, and we have been really having some difficult problems with our 911 center and the radio system. And I'm hoping we can use some of that money for that communication system because it is sorely needed here in Tioga. We'll see.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. I think, you know, obviously there's an ongoing, just on that point, and then I'll talk a little bit about Albany, this ongoing, you know, dispute and debate, if you will, in terms of the executive sweeping monies that are supposed to go to PSAPs and communication efforts. And of course, I know that the governor has, you know, grant funding and grant programs, but I think if you look at this, you know, at a very elementary level, if the surcharges were going where they belonged, to the people who are maintaining these systems, we wouldn't have to have these competitive grant programs where we're pitting counties against one another. So I would just remind everyone that if you want to ask a question, you can either put it in the chat box or again, just hit that reaction button, raise your hand, and we'll get to your questions. I think the mayor's and the chairwoman's explanation in terms of the funding that's coming from the federal government was great. And it's a good segue into, I just want to offer some thoughts on that. So the total for New York, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but it's 23.8 billion. And it's a very significant number. Obviously, I have long been saying I thought the federal government had a role to play here, no different than if there was a flood or a hurricane or a tornado, right? There would be an emergency declaration. The federal government would come and help. And this pandemic is the same, and they've done that. I think the greatest accomplishment, though, to date is the fact that that entire $23.8 billion is not going to the state of New York, that you have a very significant portion of that money that is going to flow to cities and towns and villages directly. And as the mayor said, and others have said, you know, that was a fight that everyone has been having, you know, regardless of our political persuasion. That's a argument that everyone has been having, and an effort that we've been trying to get off the ground. And the fact that it's come to fruition now, I think is offer what you also heard about the state of New York's responsibilities in terms of AIM funding or education funding. We have to make sure that state government is not supplanting funds, right? We saw them do that in public education last year. $1 billion they received from the federal government. So the state took that money, they put it into public education, and then they reduced their own responsibility in the public education space. They did it again this cycle in the executive's proposal to the tune of $2.2 billion. So, you know, you see that they have a history of doing that. But what happens in the out years, right? When those federal dollars aren't flowing, it's just creating a problem. So I think it's really important that whatever the state's responsibilities were pre-pandemic, we continue to push for those responsibilities and those obligations to still be met as we go through the budget cycle. So the governor was on the record yesterday saying that he understood that he was going to get a little bit north of 12 billion or a little bit north of 12.5 billion. But as he has long said, he needed 15 billion to make this work. So that creates an issue, right? Because there's a budget gap. And he's now talking about raising taxes to close that gap. Where he had historically over the last 3, 4, 5, or 6 months been saying, you know, he didn't want to raise taxes because he recognized, you know, the negative impacts that could have, not only on the most wealthy of New Yorkers, but New Yorkers across the board. So I'm a little concerned that he's kind of walked back on his position in terms of raising taxes. Emmanuel, I think we're going to ask a question about that at some point. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're going to ask it right now. There's a poll question for everybody. It should have popped up on your screen. Do you support raising taxes to close New York's $2.5 billion deficit? And once you answer it, it'll pop up, and then we'll share the it'll go away, and then we'll share the answers with everybody. We are currently engaged in another community voice survey. So if you guys have not taken that, you can visit our website. It's Akshar at nysenate.gov. We're asking 15 questions. Now, for those of you that have heard me say this, I apologize, but I get a little bit of pushback when I do these community voice surveys for a couple of reasons. Some people view them as leaning conservative or only of the Republican mindset because I happen to have that letter next to my name. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm asking these 15 questions because these are 15 issues that we're currently dealing with, or we will have to deal with before the end of the legislative session. So I value your input. I value your comments and your concerns on those issues. So if you'd be so kind, if you haven't taken it, again, just visit the website Akshar at nysenate.gov. One, I think, major concern in the governor's executive proposal was he is delaying or deferring the middle class tax cut. So everybody this year would have paid a little less in state income taxes based on the middle class tax cut that we did several years ago. It was phased in over a period of years. The governor is suggesting that we defer that, or we do away with it this year. I've taken pretty significant exception to that because what the governor does not defer is the Hollywood film tax credit. That is a tax break for Hollywood movie producers, millionaires and billionaires who film, shows and movies in the state of New York. That costs $420 million. My suggestion would be to defer the Hollywood tax credit and allow the middle class tax credit to go on. Manny, thank you for sharing that. I think people on this Zoom have spoken very clearly in terms of where they stand on the raising taxes. So 88% of you do not believe that we should raise taxes to close the deficit. 3% say yes, and then 8% don't know. I'll get to Albany, just to the chairwoman's point. There is so much that goes on during this month when you're preparing to debate and negotiate the state's budget, which is $190 billion this year. But unfortunately, with all that is going on with the nursing homes and the recent allegations against the governor and other things, it's really distracted everyone from doing the work. Quite frankly, I don't know how the legislative leaders and the governor get through the negotiation because there is, as I'm sure you've all been reading, a great deal of animus between both Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins, who is the majority leader, and then Speaker Hasty in the Assembly. So it's really yet to be seen. We're expecting next Monday the one House budgets to come out from both the Senate and the Assembly majorities to see where their priorities are. So I think that's in terms of the budget process, that is the next big step in trying to get to some conclusion on what the state's budget looks like and figuring out how we close that deficit. For those of you on the line that know me, you know me well enough to know that I don't want to raise taxes or I don't want to raise revenues to close that deficit. It's no different than if I or anyone on this line was short in their checking account, and we wouldn't go rob a bank. We would tighten our belt, and we would figure out how to save a little bit of money and move forward, so we could function. The state doesn't have a revenue problem; it has a spending problem, and it has historically had one. And if we could get our spending under control, that'd be a great start. If you just look at the Medicaid issue, the comptroller issued an independent report and found over $2 billion of waste, fraud, and abuse in the Medicaid system. So, rather than raise taxes on people, even the wealthiest of New Yorkers, maybe we should look at the Medicaid system first before we raise taxes. So with that, I think I'm going to take a couple of questions if you guys are okay with that. And then as things come to my mind, we'll just talk about them. So Emmanuel, with that, could you unmute Steve Reynolds, please?
Hi, how are you?
Good, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
Good. I have a COVID related issue question. A few days ago, Governor Cuomo said that if we have been fully vaccinated, and the CDC has also confirmed this, if we have been fully vaccinated, that we can travel and go to places without quarantining. That's what was said in a press conference the other day. However, my daughter works at BOCES and also a number of other places are still insisting, even if the employees have been fully vaccinated, that they still have to quarantine or go through testing, even though the guidelines have clearly changed. I also went on the New York State travel advisory. That page has not been updated since November. They say it's up to date, and that's not true. Also, I question seriously why we even have a travel advisory at all. If you go to the COVID Act Now website, which has a daily report of COVID-related cases in every state in the United States, New York State, Rhode Island, New Jersey, and South Carolina are still in the red zone. So the reality is, if I am going to get COVID, I've been, by the way, vaccinated twice, so I'm good. But if I'm going to get COVID, I have a greater chance of getting it at my local Walmart here in New York State than I have by going out of state. I feel that the travel restrictions are a total waste of time and should be dropped. Pennsylvania has done this, and Massachusetts has done this, and a number of other states have done it. It has no effect at all. That's all I have to say. I just want your comments on that.
I think specifically, if you could send us an email tomorrow about the specific of your ask. I don't have the guidance right in front of me, so I don't want to give you an opinion, especially publicly, if I'm not 100% sure on the issue. So I'll get you the answer about, look, this is half the problem with the governor's edicts, right? And him changing the guidance, and the chairwoman, the mayor, because I know the mayor sat in the control room on these issues. This is the problem with everything that the governor has done in terms of COVID, right? Today, this is the answer, and everybody changes and adapts to that very quickly. And then tomorrow morning, it's something completely different on the same issue. And that has created, I think, a lot of angst amongst people, not only here in our region, but throughout the entire state, right? Because yesterday, go pleased, and today I can't do that. So, Chairwoman, or do you just want to offer some thoughts on the changes?
I was on a call and spoke with Phil Rumsey from the governor's office. And at that point, it was a 90-day. So if you've had both shots, or if you have had the Johnson shot one, you can travel without quarantining for 90 days following your shot.
Why isn't BOCES though? Why isn't BOCES and these organizations that are state-run or educational facilities not picking up on this? Because my daughter showed the press release to the BOCES chair. She works over in the Horseheads one. She works over there. She showed him that information. And yeah, he said, until we see it on the website, until we see the actual travel advisory, we're not going to do a thing about it. So there seems to be a disconnect between the state and the website and the school and BOCES officials. This is the problem. It's been all along. It's with the orange zones and the red zones and all that other stuff that we've been dealing with for the last 6 months or last year, where there seems to be such a disconnect. And now she's being told that if she goes out of state to visit her sister, for example, she's going to have to quarantine or test when she comes back, when that's not true. She's been fully vaccinated. She's gone through the whole protocol. She's done everything she's supposed to do. And yet she's being told 2 different messages. And that's where the frustration is.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, we're happy again to get you the written guidance on this issue specifically. Just if you'd be so kind, at the end, we'll put up a way to contact us. Again, you could just email us, you could call us, whatever it may be, but we'll get you the written guidance that you could pass on to your daughter.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep, no problem. I'm going to get to You know what, Emmanuel, if you would unmute Rick Brooks for me, please. He put something in the chat, but I'll call on him now.
Rick, if you could just hit the unmute button. There you go.
Hello, good evening. Yes, my question is, I seen on the news about the Democrats voting to repeal the governor's executive orders. What does that mean to us? And is there any chances to get our capacities to our businesses raised up from where they are now to better our economy?
Well, I appreciate the question. I'm going to be incredibly candid with everyone on the line. They're lying to you. What they're trying to do is pull the wool over your eyes and pull the wool over the eyes of incredibly intelligent and hardworking New Yorkers. So let me just break down the statute for everyone. The Democrats would have you believe that they rescinded the governor's executive powers. And when I say Democrats, I mean the New York City Democrats who are currently in control. I don't mean we find a way here in the Southern Tier to get along with one another, regardless of our political persuasion. My friends from New York City have made it incredibly difficult to have a meaningful conversation because, Rick, they're doing as I described. They're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. The only thing that this statute did the other day was preclude the governor from issuing any new executive orders, unless the Commissioner of Health was able to articulate why he needed to do that, and it had a direct impact on public safety. So as I argued respectfully, of course, on the floor of the Senate last Friday, what good does that do? Because he's already issued 96 orders that have drastically impacted the lives of millions and millions and millions of New Yorkers. And, at the end of the day, actually doing nothing would have been better than what we did, because his emergency powers expired on April 30th, meaning everything that he's done would be null and void, and we would go back to starting. And another important piece on this statute that the Democrats passed was he can change any order that he's already issued. And I heard a lot on Friday about, well, we gained legislative oversight. So what is legislative oversight? The statute allows for legislative oversight. And one would think immediately that means the legislature has a voice, right? That the legislature could converse with and debate with the governor and move the issue forward collectively based on our shared constituency. Well, the only thing the new statute, this so-called repeal, allows is for the legislative leaders, meaning Andrea Stewart-Cousins and Carl Hastie, and the chairman or the chairwoman of the respective committee to offer a comment about what it is the governor is changing. Doesn't have any teeth, doesn't mean if I'm the chairman of the health committee and I say, well, that doesn't work for my constituency, or I think that would have an adverse impact on New Yorkers, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to stop it. So really, Rick, at the end of the day, it was a complete sham. And we would have been better off just allowing the emergency powers to expire on April 30th. And really, from my point of view, I think it's because those that are in charge currently in both houses, they continue to want to abdicate their responsibilities. They've forgotten that the legislature is a co-equal branch of government, and they don't want to go to work and make hard decisions. They just want to be able to blame the governor for everything that is happening. Whereas I feel a little bit differently about it. I represent 300,000 people, just like the other members of the state Senate do. And I believe that all of us should be able to have a voice on a whole host of these issues. Well,
I agree with that. But what about our chances of raising capacities in our business? Like, I work at Tioga Downs. We've been at 25% capacity for 7 months and no change. The only change we got was that increase in 1 hour.
Yeah, so we've
From-
been working very closely with Mr. Gural, Kelly Wildonner, and many other folks at Tioga Downs to address their issues and their needs. The only thing I can say is that I've seen that the governor has increased the indoor capacity at restaurants to 75%. So I'm hopeful that there may be some, we may see some guidance in the coming days to allow for more people inside the casino. Chairwoman, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I agree. We've got to get the Tioga Downs open. I did see something about outdoor events. You can have up to, I don't know, several hundred people. So I was kind of hoping that at least maybe they could get the racetrack and have some people outdoors watching. But you know, we haven't heard anything. And Mr. Brow used to call me every other week to check on our numbers. Want to make sure that they were going down, but yeah, he's very frustrated. And you know, you just can't force a thing like that. We have no power. But if you can knock on the door and keep at it, Senator, that would be great.
Sure. Okay, let's take the next question, Emmanuel. Liz Rowland.
Hi, Liz.
Okay. Am I on?
You are.
Okay. I'd just like to thank you for you and your staff for setting this meeting up and giving me an opportunity to speak with you briefly. Now I'm getting in on this because of my concern about your recent position taken on the solar project and on Montrose Turnpike.
Mhm.
And my question is multi-part. The first one is, have you discussed this with Sun East, the solar company? And may I tell you why I support the project and respond to what I see as the biggest objection?
Your first question, no, I have not spoken directly to Sun East with the exception of, and I know that either you or your wife was on the call the other night, so you heard my comments. Outside of those comments and that conversation, I've not spoken to Sun East, but of course you can offer your thoughts and I welcome them.
Okay, well, thank you. I just want to be clear that I have no financial interest in this project. John Rowland, one of the landowners, is my cousin, so I do have an interest in him. Now, there's been several objections, and the biggest one, I think, affect property value issue, but and I think the others are not so important. But first, I just want to point out that this particular location is nearly ideal for a project like this. It's very close to the NYSEG substation. Also has a distribution line behind it, which is perfect for a solar array like what's proposed. And the slope of the land is good and for this sort of thing. And it also would be a boost to the sales tax revenue and the tax base. And it seems like based on your SNAP survey, people are not interested in paying more taxes. So I think if we can add to the local tax base, this is a very good thing for the community. And I won't get into the whole climate change issue, but I think you're well aware of that and the importance of renewables. You've said that in the past. Now, the objection that I think has the most merit is about property values. And what I've been able to find out about this since the planning meeting, when I became aware of your objection, is that it is true, but it's not as much as one might think. And it surprised me too. And it's also temporary. And I'll tell you why and why I'm saying this. It's based on two surveys, one done by the University of Texas, another one done by I think maybe it was a real estate appraiser organization in North Carolina, but I can get you those papers. And the survey in Texas was of real estate appraisers in quite a few states, and that have had solar developments and have had experience with them. Now, appraisers that don't have experience with solar will say that the effect on property values is serious and long lasting. But the people that actually have done appraisals over time with these projects have found that while it's a small, less than 5% drop in property value, it tends to disappear over a few years, because as people get used to it and the setbacks and the visual barriers are developed, they start to realize that a solar farm is actually a pretty good neighbor. And I don't think a lot of people have thought about this really, but my cousin's 78, his health is not good. That land is not going to be an open field for very much longer, I don't think. And it could be he's been approached by developers, real estate developers. It could be a housing development. It could just be broke up into lots. There's all sorts of things that are quite likely going to happen to that property fairly soon, because he's just not going to be able to do the farming. And essentially all the farms up the turnpike are gone. I mean, when I was a young boy, there were 5 functional farms between here and the village. They're all gone now. But to get back to why they're a good neighbor, one, there's not more people. There's not more people driving up and down the road. They're not nosy. They're not noisy. And they keep more people from moving in across the street from you. And I think over time, when a solar project goes in and people have the opportunity to recognize the benefits of it, the property issue diminishes, and people that come in after the project is there, it's already there. So they're quite happy to buy a piece of property when they know nobody's going to build a house across the road from them. So I just want to make that point, that some of the people that are opposing it may not have thought about the likely scenarios that are coming down the road. And
I would just say,
sure.
while I of course appreciate your comments, and I'm very happy to have an offline conversation with you, just so we're respectful of other people's times and their questions. If you have a specific question of me about my position on the project, I'm happy to answer it now. If you want to have a subsequent conversation, I'm happy to do that. You and I can do that tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, that would be nice. I guess the one thing is that this is an ask really, because this survey, there's been 2 of them in the last few years, and I've told you what the results are. But there's actually, apparently, there's been no good studies done to substantiate what I've just told you, other than surveys of appraisers. Now, there's been solar developments for quite a few years, and I would think it would be useful for all parties to get a survey done of real estate prices, because I've got property adjacent to this development too. I'd like to really see what happens to property prices over time, over 10 years or so. Is this really true? Or do the appraisers know what they're talking about? I mean, they should. They're in the business, right? I mean, is there any way you could slip something in the budget that would do this? I think it'd be quite valuable for the state of New York going forward to be able to have to know whether this is something to be concerned about, sir.
Okay, point well taken. And why don't you and I have a follow-up and subsequent conversation tomorrow where we can discuss these issues offline? I would
What
very
time
much.
would you like to do that?
Well, if you just call or email, someone from the staff will set it up for us, okay?
All right. Thank you
All right.
very
I
much.
look forward to it. I just want to address in the chat box, Lana Pierce. She's a little upset with me. She feels that my tone is mean-spirited concerning Democrats. And she's a little upset with me, and she disagrees with my far right leaning thoughts. Ms. Pierce, I'm sorry if I've upset you. It's never my intention to upset anyone. It is my intention, though, to tell the truth the best way I know how, and to make sure that my constituency understands what is happening. And I said this a little bit earlier during the outset. You know, when I'm speaking about it, the Democrats, specifically speaking about the New York City Democrats, who are currently in control and really trying their very best to shape our way of life upstate. I have many accomplishments working with Democrats across the aisle and getting things accomplished. So I think my record speaks for itself in that vein. And sometimes I guess if I get a little upset or a little excited, that's because I care about the people that I'm representing. Manny, with that, Elsa Musa, please.
Hi, my name is Elsa Musa, and this is my husband, David Musa. And I called, wait 1 second. Okay, so I don't know if this is the proper place for us to really bring the situation, but we called your office today, and he gave me some advice, and he also told me that it wouldn't hurt for me to bring up my situation here. So thank you for having me. I'm calling because we're having a lot of problems with our water bill, and it's been fluctuating up and down tremendously. Just for an example, my bill in October, we get our bills every 4 months. And in October of 2020, it was $163.45. And our last one, that's really hard. And the last one that we got was $346.86. And I called and I spoke to the director, which was Tyson, the director of the utilities. And when I spoke to him, he was chuckling and telling me that there were many people calling about this situation, and that they had a lady that was working there and she was not doing her job properly. And that's the reason why our bills were so low. And that this would be my current water, my new norm. And I asked him in 4 months how, you know, I mean, that's 18,000, almost 19,000 gallons of water in the winter time without being off an above ground pool or watering our flowers. So it's a big concern to me. I mean, am I going to start getting a bill for $500 or $600 for a water bill? And he says, well, that's what you use. That's what, you know, it's going to be. And so, I mean, I wasn't really getting much answers with him. And he seemed to be getting annoyed. So I decided to leave it alone. And I reached out to the people in the community, and I put on, first I called some friends of mine, which one was in the town of Vestal, and she gets her bill every 3 months. And she said that the highest that she ever paid was $200 with 6 people living in the house. While here it's only 2 of us living in the house. And it was $200. And her bill now is, and this is water and sewer together, is $100 every 3 months. I went and I spoke to someone in the town of Binghamton, and she told me that her bills are about 163, 170, which is what we were getting before, and we were fine with that. And that's the norm for her. So I reached out and I went onto Facebook and I got onto Tioga Terrace, and also I reached out to Owego Appalachian group on Facebook. And I was a little alarmed because so many people are responding and saying that they're having all these problems and that they're getting $600 and $700 bills, and it's very upsetting. Your office did tell me to reach out to Donald Castellucci, and he's the supervisor, I guess, of the town of Owego, and I did leave a message there. I don't know, what can you tell me that we have to do something? I don't understand how, first of all, how could we use 18,000 gallons of water extra in 4 months in the winter time? And why are we so different from Binghamton and from the town of Vestal?
Ma'am, can I ask where you live? I'm sorry, I probably should have done that a
Sure.
little bit earlier.
I live in the town of in Appalachian, and we're part of the town of Owego.
Okay. Chairwoman, has there been any, to your knowledge, any changes in the way that the pricing water and sewer, or does this seem abnormal? Not to put you on the spot.
I haven't heard anything, but that would be, town of Owego has, they take care of their own water, so I don't know. I haven't heard anything.
All
The
right.
the village is with an entirely, it's with Suez, so.
All
I
right.
haven't heard anything.
Ms. Musa and Mr. Musa, we will call the supervisor for you tomorrow and try to get you an answer specifically on this issue. And who did you speak to in the office today? Do you recall? In my office.
Nicholas,
Okay.
is that correct?
Yep.
No, the one that I spoke to his office was Nick. He's the one that sent me the link and told me that I should call. And who else did I speak to?
At Castellucci's, you spoke to.
At Castellucci's, I spoke to Louise.
Okay, so we're going to call you back tomorrow and get some more information from you specifically on the issue, and we'll deal with the supervisor directly.
Okay, thank you so very much. I
On your behalf.
appreciate you.
Yep, of course.
Senator,
Okay,
do you mind
Manny,
if I ask a question, Senator?
Oh, no, please, Mayor. Thank you.
Of the woman, Elsa, who was speaking before. Are you talking about, is your bill combined, is it water and sewer, or are you specifically questioning water? You're muted, ma'am.
Manny, could you unmute Ms. Musa? Thanks.
It's the water and sewer together. And I also, when I did it, when I was asking the people who live in the town of Vestal and the town of Binghamton, I was comparing apples to apples. It's also water and sewer together.
Okay, when you said Binghamton, I assume the city of Binghamton, but you're talking about the town of Binghamton, and when you asked for a comparison of a neighbor.
It's just a friend that I know that she lives next to General Hospital. Is that what? That's the south side?
Yeah, sure. So that would be the city of Binghamton if it's by General Hospital. So just because you were referencing Binghamton, and I could about the comparison, I'm not exactly sure, in Tioga County, but the water rates have remained relatively flat in Binghamton over the course of the last 8 years. They've been very slight, like an average of maybe 0 to 1% a year. So over the course of the last 7 years, they've gone up approximately 7%, just the water rate. So that portion of it has been relatively stable and will continue to be stable. Now the sewer rates for many municipalities in Broome County have increased or are fluctuating because of we have a major project, the joint sewage treatment plant. So those rates, depending on the municipality you live in, have increased significantly. But based on the quarter or the 4 month period you're talking about, that does seem like an excessive increase. And when I get those questions in Binghamton, I have people go out and look at, are there any nearby, water breaks on the homeowner's side, or are there any, is it, I mean, even a toilet couldn't generate that amount of a running toilet. So
well, we had they suggested to have somebody come out, and the gentleman came out, and all these other people that I've been speaking to have said that they've sent someone out, and there's nothing, there aren't any leaks, and there aren't any problems with our toilets. What he did say to me was that they were being nice to us because they were not going to charge us for what our usage was for when this lady was giving us lower bills, which I didn't really take to that very well. He's not he's doing me a favor and not going to back charge me for what our usage was. I thought that was that was rude and not a professional answer from a director. It's just very concerning. I mean, 18,000 gallons of water. Actually, it's 18,983 gallons
Difference.
difference.
As an administrator of a water system for our village anyway, in Tioga County, it can happen in the winter. There's leaks, and the leaks are difficult to find. And I agree with you that is high movement. And in our southern tier with all the shale and the rocks, you never see leaks. And hopefully they will bring out a leak detector, because there can be many leaks between the street and your your service, as an example. So it's interesting. The municipality should come out with a leak detector and be able to determine that, because I mean, it's all by meters, and if the meters are accurate, then I'm sorry to take up so much time, but
yeah, but the meter is detecting usage in the house, not from the house out to the street.
and again, it's the same thing as Mayor David is saying too. There can be internal leaks. That is a wild difference, and it may be a problem with the meter itself, which.
Well, that's what I'm to believe, that it's something, a glitch in the meter that jumps a decimal point or something whenever it's electronic.
And when
It's susceptible to that kind of stuff.
if it was only us, then I would say, okay, maybe we have a problem or there's a leak somewhere. But I've never done this before, and I was a little overwhelmed with the amount of people that have answered me back on Facebook, stating that they also have been getting. There's a lady here, Rose McCabe, and she has a daycare, and I know that the children probably flush the toilet and stuff, but a $700 bill of water. Whoa, this other guy also said a $600 bill of water. The
municipality should help you arrive at the solution. They really should. And I know the people over there, and it's a matter of getting to the solution, and that's what you want. And that's what they should develop for you.
Well, we need a little help with that, because Mr. Tyson thought that was funny. It's not funny. It's not funny. And him giggling on the phone. So many people have been calling us. It's not funny.
We will be happy to communicate with Ms. Tyson and Mr. Castellucci tomorrow to help you get the issue resolved. So you will hear from someone from the staff tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you so very much. You have a good evening.
You as well. Thank you so much for the question. Madam Chairwoman, I'm going to ask you to answer this one. It's in the chat section, talking about recycling specifically in Tioga County. The question, are there any plans for drop-off locations for recycling in Tioga? Comes from Elaine and Mike Lovegreen.
Right. So long about last December, we thought we had an agreement for a drop-off site, but the people that we were working with chose not to make that available. So currently we have no plans for drop-off. We have 4 businesses that pick up garbage and recycling. And in most cases, if you do the calculations, they'd be a little less than you would pay if we'd gone with a larger, with a bid. Because the issue is the commodities, meaning recyclable goods, the value has declined. And so therefore recycling goes up because there's no market for glass, and it's very difficult to find, to get cardboard sold. So so it's more costly. So at this time, we have no plans. That doesn't mean we won't have some plans, but right now, after going through COVID and everything, we're not looking at any drop-off sites. We thought we had an agreement. It didn't work out, so now we're just gonna have to wait and see.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Yep.
Emmanuel, take the next question, please.
Hello, Joe Pont. Yes, your mic is
Oh,
on.
Judy Opont.
Judy, hi. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you for having me here tonight. I really do appreciate this. So I sit on the board of Cornell Cooperative Extension, but I really have a very personal question. And I also want to say thank you to the Mr. and Mrs. Muson, I believe, because I live in Tioga County, and I've been living here for almost 16 years now. And I must say that every 4 months, I have been paying about $375 for just water. I know that I don't want to come across as being like boastful or anything like that. I certainly feel the pain because I feel the pain every time my husband says, oh, we're going to get a water bill pretty soon. And I tell him all the time, please don't even mention the water bill because it's usually over $300 every 4 months. We do not have sewer attached to it. It's just the water. So I just heard one of the gentlemen said that it's also perhaps it's a leak. So I'm also wondering, in addition to the question that I asked, with all of the snow that we had, almost 5 feet of snow, does that mean that the snow, when it starts to melt, will that also add to the water bill? So that's my first question. And my more important question would be to Fred Akshar. Do you happen to know if the president will be doing anything about the student loan?
I think that President Biden pushed back to some degree on the loan forgiveness. I think the number by the progressive wing of the party, I'll say, was at 50,000. I think the president was reluctant to go that high. I don't have the specifics. Obviously, I don't serve you in Washington, so I probably know as much about it as you do, or maybe you have followed it more closely than I have. But it is not in this particular package. The issue is not addressed that way. So I know that there is not an agreement by the president and others in his party. They've not reached consensus on that particular number in terms of student loan forgiveness.
Okay.
And while I'm not a water expert in terms of the water department, I don't think, and maybe the chairwoman or the mayors could opine here, I don't think that the melting snow, would have any effect on your water meter. And I'm just looking at my phone because Mayor David had mentioned this, that it sounds like the president and members of Congress are a little bit closer on a deal of 10,000. Is that right, Mayor? That's your understanding?
They're having conversations about 10,000, but nothing has been, voted on, submitted, or finalized.
Right.
And you are correct about the water too. It's the snow does not impact. It's only what comes out of your faucet.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Good question though.
Yeah.
Thank you for the question, and thanks for joining us this evening. Emmanuel, can we go to Mr. Mann?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thanks, Donald.
All right. Well, first I want to say thank you for yourself and for Marty and Jim and the mayor for all taking the time to be here and allow us to have our concerns and time to talk. I have a question, and I wasn't quite sure where actually different. It's about the quarantine orders. I've got 2 kids that go to school, a high school here in Tioga County, and both at different times have received the quarantine letters from Tioga County Health Department. Both the letters looked exactly the same in writing, just the dates were different. And I just wanted to make sure that I understood and accurately knew before I went and complained by my own opinion of what things were, where I could find and what statutes or law that New York State has in issuing the quarantine orders. I did look on the New York State website, but that's not my forte or my skill set. So before I went off and, was upset and not being fully informed, I just wanted to ask if you or anyone could just direct me to it, and I would, read them on my own. And if I still had questions, I could, reach out to whoever I would need to, as far as that goes.
I just want to make sure I understand your question. Are you talking specifically about whether a school can issue the quarantine order, or the county can issue that?
No, from what I read in the state statutes that I could find, that I would completely agree with, that according to state law, that the local health department or county has the authority to issue quarantine orders, under guidelines. But I just wanted to, from what I could read, I was in a title section 2.13, and it talked about isolation and quarantine procedures. And there was a list of 12 items that had to be included in there. And the letter that we had, both of them, didn't include all those items that would, from what I was reading, I would have assumed, if you were giving a legal order, that they would have to be included if that is the statute. But again, this isn't my forte at all, or my area of expertise. So before I, said, hey, this is completely wrong, I wanted to make sure that I had the correct information that I was referencing in my research concerning, I didn't know if there was an executive order that I was unaware of that changed or superseded or changed how you would go about what I found as far as what were the New York State codes, rules, and regulations concerning, how these orders were supposed to be issued.
Sure. Madam Chairwoman, do you have any thoughts? I have a thought that I'll share, but I just want to give you an opportunity with the health department.
Well, there's the Department of Health, and then there's the governor's office, and they don't always agree on the same information. The public health director does have the authority to quarantine, and we did go from 10 days. No, we went from 14 days quarantine to 10. But if you're talking about the level of exposure, is that really your question? Like, no, that's not it. I don't know.
Donald,
So
you want to be able to point to very specific statute, right? That says this is the language that gives the health department the authority to make those quarantine decisions. Is that right?
Well, I would agree that they absolutely have the authority to make the decisions. I personally would like, as a due process, says that, in the code, that it says the health department may issue, or direct local authorities to issue isolation quarantines consistent with the due process of law. And then further in this section, it lays out basically 11 things that the order should include, that I would assume would be the parts of the due process of law. And there were, there are a couple of things that aren't in either of these letters, now that we've got two of them that I read them, and that concerns me a little. And if, when I get a speeding ticket, it's got my name on it, it's got who issued it, it's got, where the violation took place, and it usually has the code that was violated or the statute on that ticket, and that would, seem appropriate if someone is, being penalized, or, law is being exercised to somehow, whether it's be a fee or a penalty, or if I was to be arrested, those things would be required by due process of law. And again, I understand the whole keeping the safety issue of it, and we did abide by these requests that were on here. But the letter also did say that we asked. It didn't say that you are quarantined by the language that's in the letter, which, I assume that it is a legal quarantine, and that's something we have to fulfill legally. But it didn't say that. It said ask in both of the letters. And then as I went to that section that I found, it talked about that you would also, in the letter, it would have to be included that there is a statement of the person as, the right to seek judicial review, as well as the person has right to legal counsel. And none of those things weren't in the letter either. So again, I'm not trying to be, controversial or pick a fight or anything. It's just a a matter of making sure that, as we do these things, where is it? Again, if there's an executive order that is changed and makes that null and void, there were 96 of them. I clearly don't know all 96 of them. I just wanted to ask the question so I could have clarification. So when, I look at my children and say, you can't do this, that I can, faithfully say that, no, I did research it myself a little bit. And these are, this is appropriate and how it's supposed to be done, in the right way.
Marty, maybe we could combine forces here. Robin from our office, and then maybe you could point us in the right direction from somebody at the Tioga County Department of Health, so we can get Mr. Mann a solid answer on his question. Robin, Alpaw Donald on my staff is he handles these guidance issues for me. So if we could have a sidebar tomorrow, I think we'd be in a better position to help you through the issue, if you're amenable to that.
Yeah.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate it. It's just, trying to be responsible and make sure that I'm informed is all I want to do, as long as I make sure that I understand, how the procedure works, and, that these are the rules, and this is why we follow the rules, because they're here and they're consistent, that's all. It was my concern when I read it. Again, I don't want to make sure it's not my opinion of what I think it should be, but this is what it says it is, and well, that's what we're going to work under.
Sure. Would you be so kind just to call the office tomorrow and we can start the process?
Sure. What's the?
Yep, it's 773
Mm-hmm.
8771.
Is there anyone that picks up the phone, or should I ask for anyone in particular?
I promise you'll get a human being on the phone.
Okay.
But you should ask for Robin.
Robin.
Yep, Robin Alpaw. Robin will help you. I think Robin's on the line tonight, so he knows the call's coming.
Okay. What time is your office open?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Okay.
Yep.
All right, then I will I'll give you a call tomorrow. Again, all our public servants, yourself, Fred, and Marty, and Jim, and Mayor Davies, I really do appreciate it. I can see it looks like you're all at home, and yet you're still here taking the time to speak to us. That does mean a lot. It doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you very much.
It's our pleasure. I think I can speak for everybody on the line. Okay, let's take the next question, Emmanuel. It says Thomas's iPad.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to actually turn it right back to you. I think many of us here are trying to find out what's going on in Albany. We've got some national attention, and I don't want to upset anybody on a political vibe here, but we've got some unscrupulous things going on, and we want answers. So with that, I'd like you to take it back and let us know what's going on, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, the governor was elected by the people, right? So he obviously has to answer to the constituents in terms of his political future. There are dual investigations that are currently happening. There is an investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice with specifically related to the nursing home issue. There is another investigation that's currently taking place by the Attorney General's office. Now, that investigation will not be done specifically by the Attorney General. It's going to be done by an outside lawyers, and she's chosen those lawyers today, actually. One of those lawyers was a deputy assistant under Preet Bharara, who investigated the Moreland Commission that the governor was involved in. So there are those two investigations that are currently taking place, and those take time. It's probably not the answer you want, but or people would expect, but you can't. I guess we all collectively can't expect those investigations to be concluded in a couple of days and for us to have the answers. Now, in relationship to this conversation about impeachment, just so everyone knows, The only way that the governor can be impeached is if the assembly actually brings articles of impeachment against the governor. And the majority has to do that. The Democrats are in charge in both houses, right? The Senate and the Assembly. A lot like impeachment in the federal government, the House of Representatives would bring the articles of impeachment, and then the trial would take place in the Senate. In relation to this instance, again, the members of the majority in the state assembly would have to bring formal articles of impeachment. They would, I'm just looking at my notes here. They would assign managers of that impeachment, and then they would conduct their business, and then the trial again would take place in the Senate. I'm going to be a political realist here, Tom. I don't think Speaker Hasty has the political will or the political courage to do something like that. I really don't. If you look at what has transpired in terms of people coming out and taking a position on this issue, whether it be the nursing home issue or the most recent allegations, the speaker is really yet to have a formal opinion about the matter. The majority leader in the state Senate has called for the governor's resignation. The speaker has not really done that. He's kind of put the onus back on the governor. So, for me, I believe in due process. I always have. And as I was very clear on the nursing home issue, I believe that we have to allow these investigations to run their course, and for us to get the facts, and then we can make a determination. I don't know if the governor survives this. Quite frankly, I think his political future is incredibly dim. And I think that what we've seen over the last week or 10 days, I think people who have been reluctant to speak out about the governor's behavior, the way he treats his employees, the way he treats members of the legislature, the way he treats members of the county legislature.
Yeah.
People have always been reluctant to talk about those things because of the way the governor has ruled, quite frankly. And I think more and more people now are open to having those public discussions. And if you would have asked me 6 months ago, if you would have asked me 2 months ago, did I think that the attorney general was independent? I would have said not in a million years, that she was just an extension of the governor. But I think she really showed her independence with the nursing home report. I didn't think in a million years that she would have ever issued a report like that, condemning the actions of the governor. And she did that. And she has picked some very, very high profile independent lawyers to investigate the most recent allegations. So I think, I personally, I think that we should just let these investigations run their course, and then, go from there. I don't know if that answered your question.
It does, and I really appreciate how you explain things and stated. I was on the phone with someone from your office earlier today about this, and we were able to talk a little bit at length. I work on a national. I have business in a tremendous amount of states in our country, as well as in Canada. And to hear what people are saying in the embarrassment and things of that nature, I agree with you 100%. You're innocent until proven guilty. You really are. But some things that you said that I really genuinely appreciate is how he acts. Okay, the man got an Emmy. And I expressed, okay, what is an Emmy for? Is it how you lead, or is it how you act? So we're all feeling his inability to lead. And again, I'm not trying to be political here. These are just things that you see in how he does things. I think New York State has taken a big hit in where we are and his constituents within the state. And I'll just leave it at this. I need to get my kids to bed, so I'm going to leave here, but I really appreciate everything that you are doing, everything that everybody's doing to get this situation under control. So I'll just
Yeah.
leave it.
No, thank you. I appreciate your thoughts and your comments. And, I say to people often, Tom, that, when we lost the majority, we may have lost our vote, but we have not lost our voice. And I think it's incredibly important that, it's why we do the things we're doing tonight, right? So I completely understand where the constituency is, how they feel about issues. And then, we take that message back to Albany and we try our very best to do what we can with the situation at hand. So again, it's kind of like the 800-pound gorilla in the room, right? There's a lot to do. There really is. I mean, with the budget and the like, and so many other things. And it's just these issues are just sucking the oxygen out of the room.
Yep. So very well put. And it boils down to leadership right now. And that's what we the people, we really need that. So again, I really appreciate everything that you're doing. I'm going to jump off here. Thank you for letting me get in, but I need to get my kids to bed. So thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us.
Yep.
Okay, Manny, let's go to Holly Phyllis, please.
Holly, if you could please unmute yourself. Oh, you're all set.
All set? Okay. Good evening. First of all, I appreciate that Mr. Akshar's staff got right back to me. They're very responsive and I appreciate that. My question is in regards to schools opening. So I am specifically Candor Elementary in the Candor Central School District. On March 5th, Mr. Kozlowski, the superintendent of Candor Central School District, put out a statement citing that the school lacks the physical space and faculty to open the school full time. At this time, Candor students are being offered a hybrid model, which includes 2.5 hours, 4 days a week, which is less than any other Tioga County school is receiving right now at the elementary level. All other elementary schools in Tioga County are receiving more in-person learning than Candor is right now. I had a conversation with Mr. Kozlowski and he indicated that his hands were tied and he suggested that we speak to you and our other county officials in hopes that something could change quickly. Our school has been on this plan from the beginning of the year, starting in September. Things haven't changed. They've gone for 2.5 hours. And I think it's really leaving our Candor kids behind. And I'm just curious to know what the next steps are for the school, if things have been discussed or talked about it, at a higher level.
Well, let me address a couple of things. So the superintendent did in fact reach out to us. And I think the issue that is the guidance that is creating issues specifically for Candor is the 6-foot rule. And where there are in fact some school districts that don't have the space, so on and so forth. There are some discussions about addressing, whether it be the 12-foot rule when it comes to choruses and bands, and the 6-foot rule when it comes to restaurants and schools. But as we've seen, and I know that the mayors and the chairwoman can attest to this, state government, specifically the executive, of course, has been incredibly slow to respond in relation to the changing of guidance. I think we heard it earlier with Mr. Reynolds in terms of updating the website, right? In terms of restrictions and quarantines and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, the school issue really is a local issue, with the exception of some of the guidance that you've seen in terms of the 6-foot rule or the 12-foot rule. And I think I'm not being critical, but I think this is one mistake that the governor made when it came to public education. The governor was very, and I'm a big proponent of local control, but the governor was very quick to control much of our life, but he did not step in with schools, right? So there's kind of like a hodgepodge of what they do in Candor may be a little bit different than they do in Owego, or they do it different in Binghamton or Shenango Valley or Norwich. And it's really created a lot of issues, right? And a lot of angst. I'm assuming, Holly, you're looking at what you have to do in Candor, but down the road, they could be doing something completely different. And
Absolutely.
it's created
Mhm.
a lot of issues, but with the exception of the 6-foot rule, much of the decisions, all of the decisions about how schools are opening is really left to the local school districts. Mayors or chairwoman, any thoughts?
I would like to add, I was on a conference call on Friday again when the executive from Broome County asked the governor's folks this question. Onondaga County is now allowing their kids to be 3 feet away in their classrooms. Can we do that?
So
the
I'm
answer
sorry.
came,
Oh,
so
yeah, go ahead.
Onondaga County,
Yeah.
school systems now are allowing kids to be 3 feet between each kid, not 6. So the exec asked Phil Rumsey the question, and the answer came back, I guess you can do whatever you want. We really can't control that. Now, that's not in writing. So, perhaps Candor superintendent could reach out to the governor's office, or I can give the superintendent the email for Mr. Rumsey or Kara Griffin, and he can ask that question and get the answer he needs if he needs to make more room, if we have local control.
When I spoke to Mr. Kozlowski in regards to that 6-foot versus 3-foot rule, and maybe this is something, he mentioned that it was at the local level, that the local health department was not allowing us to use the 3-foot distance at this point in time. Like Senator Akshar mentioned, when I looked on the COVID report card website, it looks like every other school in Tioga County has almost similar ratios, to be honest with you, when it comes to in-person students to teachers. So Candor, it looks like, has 379 students to 35 teachers. That would be about 10.8 kids per teacher. Owego Elementary, which is open full-time for their elementary students, they have 349 students and 43 teachers, which is 8.11 students. So they're all very similar. I don't see, I guess, I know it's not fair to compare school districts, but it's very, like you said, Mr. Akshar, when you see children going to school 4 days a week, 4 full days a week in Spencer, and Candor kids are left behind for 2.5 hours a day, we all know kids regress so much. Our kids are going to be so far behind compared to the kids in the next school district.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the problem that this hodgepodge approach has created for us, right? And
yes,
I believe that we can get our kids back into the school buildings and do it in a safe manner. But there are unfortunately, with the ability, without saying, this is the way that we should move forward on the issue, it's created, and not having very clear and concise information about, what is the rule, right? Phil Rumsey today is the governor's representative, and he says, well, you whatever answer. It's a terrible answer. It is a terrible answer, but I suppose should be expected from Phil. It's probably not fair for me to say, but it's just, that's the problem, right? Here you are trying to make good decisions about educating our children, and you could do whatever you want to do. We'll work with the chairwoman and the executive's office to try to get some clearer guidance for the superintendent there, so he can make the best informed decisions that he possibly can.
It sounded to me like he was well informed about it. He is very well informed about it. But to me, he stated that the health department wasn't willing to budge on that 6-foot rule.
Well, I want to be clear about something. It's not the fault of the Tioga County Health Department. If if anyone has created the 6-foot rule, it is the New York State Department of Health. And I just think it's important that we, those at the county health department are taking their direction and their guidance from the State Department of Health. So
Mhm.
we will collectively advocate for a change there.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Is there anyone else that has any questions? We're happy to take them. Just raise the hand button. That was that happened to be the last question that I'm looking at. Let me just look here. Manny, did I miss anything in the chat box?
There was a question about any gun control legislation in Albany, if you'd like to touch on that.
Yep, I see that. Jeff, or Manny, can you find Jeff and unmute him for me, please?
Yes, just give me one moment.
Thanks so much.
Jeff, if you're able to, could you unmute yourself, please?
There
Are
we
you there?
go.
Great.
Yep, well, thank you all for being here tonight. And I did have a question about gun control.
Sure. Go ahead.
Member of the New York State Firearms Association. And every day I'm getting emails from them, take action on this, take action on that. I'm actually on their webpage right now, and it looks like there's about 20 bills or 20 items here that it just keeps coming, And I wanted to get an idea from you, because you're there all the time. Should we really be concerned about half of this stuff? And if there's anything that that you can give a position on, that would be great.
Well, in order for me to give you a formal position on proposed legislation, I think you'd respect this. I mean, I would like to see it and be able to read it before I gave you a position. But I have a very strong record of supporting the Second Amendment. If you looked at my voting record in terms of what has come across my desk and the way I've voted, you'd see that I support our Second Amendment and often reject much of what comes from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. But I'm happy, Jeff, to have a sidebar conversation if you wanted to talk specifically about individual pieces of legislation or to have a conversation about where I think a certain bill may go, if it doesn't ever make its way to the floor. I'm happy to do that. I just think it'd be better if we had a sidebar on that issue.
Okay, sounds good.
Feel free to call whenever you'd like. Manny, unmute Dan Spencer, please.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Dan, how are you?
Good. How are you, Fred?
Good.
I've got a question and a suggestion or a proposal for the county. And if it works, I think it would actually roll out to other counties and areas as well. One of the issues our area has, I've experienced it myself several times, but we have these 100-year floods every 5 years in multiple areas that really get devastated by a lot of water. One of the things, there was a study done, give or take a year ago by the state, and they discovered, a lot of the waterways in the area are flooded with gravel, which raises the water level. So they've said that cleaning out these waterways would be a way to mitigate a lot of the flooding, but nobody can afford to do it. Certainly counties don't have the funding or the budget to clean out these waterways. What if we were able to come up with a partnership, so to say, with local companies that already are harvesting gravel to clean out these waterways in these flood-prone areas? We could get these companies to essentially clean it out in return for the material that they clean out of the waterways. The biggest challenge, I would think, would be the DEC getting permitting done. And certainly that would be a challenge, but it may be something to explore and also mitigate a lot of homeowners' headaches.
Yeah, I think it's a point well taken, and you're spot on in terms of the DEC. I think there are many private organizations, companies that would be happy to do that, especially some that we know right in the area that are in that particular business. But I'm sure, either the mayors, the legislator that's with us, the chairwoman can tell you and can attest to this, that dealing with the DEC on this particular issue is incredibly difficult. Anytime, even if you had a crick on your own property and you wanted to clean it out, and you decided to take your tractor down there and do that, if the DEC caught you, they'd raise hell. They really would. And for the municipal leaders who try to, do that to mitigate issues, it can be problematic. We've had some successes throughout the district, for, singular issues or larger issues where we involve the DEC. But I think it's a great idea, and I think probably something that we should continue to talk about.
Thank you.
You got it. Thank you. Manny, Robert's iPad, please.
Yes, I'm on.
You got it, Robert.
Yeah, on this thing, we go back to the getting the schools open. I called the Wego-Appalachian School District. I called the health department. They basically, are waiting for guidance from the state or whatever. I went on the state website and ran down the rabbit hole. I called the governor's office and left a message, haven't got anything back. But what is it you as a state senator can do to get the governor to come up with some guidelines that says, okay, we need to get these kids back in school. This is what they have to do. Other states have their students back in school, and the CDC says it's safe, but what can be done? I can't get a straight answer. We need to get these kids back in school. These students are being robbed of their lifetime experience, and it's sad that we as adults cannot do something to get them back to school full-time, 100% in their sports and their after school activities.
I think the short answer, Robert, is that, I think there was an earlier question in the chat section too about the teachers union. And I think that's why the governor has structured this the way he has, right? He didn't want to take on the teachers union, which is an incredibly powerful union in the state of New York. I don't know if you're saying that you're not getting an answer or straightforward answer. I don't know if there is a good straightforward answer other than just opening up the schools, right? But again, we have this system in place by the governor's orders that allows for each school district to make up make their own decisions, make up their own mind about how they educate our students, which is creating a lot of issues. The only thing I can do, you asking me specifically, what can you do to help us? I think it's issues like the 6-foot rule, right, versus the 3-foot rule. When you have a school like Candor saying, hey, we would be able to bring all of our kids back if you could get the governor to move on this guidance of 6 feet. And, throughout the course of this, the mayors can tell you this, the chairwoman will tell you this, a lot of issues like this have come up where we have just raised our collective voice and said, this isn't working. It really needs to look like this. And it didn't happen overnight, but we have been successful from time to time, getting the executive to move on some of these issues. And I just want their kids back in school. And Holly raises a great point. I think kids are going to be left behind, and I think we're going to be feeling the impacts of these decisions for years and years to come. And these kids are our future. So, Chairwoman, you have thoughts?
Well, I agree, but I really do believe it's up to the schools, because when this all started, the schools in the last summer submitted a plan to the governor's office. This is how they're going to operate, and so. But things change. It seems like there's more flexibility. They're letting kids play sports, and they're allowing spectators now. Now that has come not in an orderly fashion, but it's come in bits and pieces. And Broome County said they could, have spectators. Chemung County, so now Tioga County is having spectators. but there's been no edict that says, you know, you can have spectators and this is how it's going to work. So there's a lot of laws or ordinances or guidance that's been issued, but as time goes on, sometimes it never really gets addressed clearly. So then you have to call the governor's office and ask, how does this work? You're absolutely right. We need to get the kids back. No doubt about it.
I'm sorry, might have missed it, Robert. What school district?
Owego.
Yeah, are they in a hybrid? I know the superintendent, but are they in a hybrid model there?
Well, yes, but Thursday, I just found out tonight that Thursday, they have a red team and a blue team. Thursday, the red team will be 100%, the blue team will be 50%. And I guess Friday or another day of the week, they'll switch that. But, you know, the 3-foot rule, the 6-foot rule, what is it? Why can't the state say, okay, keep them 3 foot apart or 6 feet apart, which they probably are. When I talk to the school, you know, the thing is the distancing and, you know, keeping things clean, you know, the teacher's got to wait down the classroom after each class, whatever. But it's just so confusing out there. There's no set guidelines that I know of. And I'm not, you know, the health department's doing their job, the state's doing, or the schools are doing their job, you're doing your job. But it's just that, you know, maybe you as in the Senate and the House, the Assembly have to put some pressure on the governor to say, okay, let's get these kids back in school. And these are the things you have to do at a minimum. And
it's why we thought the clean repeal bill was so important, right? By repealing the emergency powers that the governor had, or at the very least letting them expire on the 30th of April, so we could get back to business as normal. Nobody was arguing that we shouldn't distance ourselves, or we shouldn't wear masks, or COVID wasn't important. We understand all those things to be true. But, you know, at the end of the day, letting those emergency powers expire would have put us in a position, to your point, Robert, where, you know, the kids could have got back to school. You know, the diner could have had, you know, as many patrons as the diner could have fit, as long as people were being careful. You know, I understand your frustration, and we'll continue to advocate on not only your behalf, but on the others' behalf as well.
Well, I'm looking out for these kids. I mean, I told my granddaughter and her friends, I said, you should get all the students, social media, go sit in that parking lot at OFA, sit down and say, we ain't moving until we go back to school 100%. It says, these adults are robbing you of your youth. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and the wool was pulled over my eyes. I was sent to Vietnam, and darn it, I'm trying to make these kids understand you got to stand up and speak and get your parents involved and take control of your school. You have a voice, use it. And I'm a grandfather, and you know, my blood just boils when I see that we're not fighting to get these kids back in school.
Well, number one, thank you for your service, and your grandchildren are lucky to have you, for sure.
Yes.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah, thank you for your service, and thank you for doing this, because I think I just wish you had enough time to do this more often. And I know you're busy, and I think we need more of these, but I know your time is valuable, and you're working hard. And like I said, I took my campaign sign, and it's in the shed, and it's going up when you run again. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Manny,
Yes.
Let's take one more question from Ashley Marie, please.
Hi there. This might sound a little, I don't know, ungrateful in any way, but my son has been attending school full-time since the beginning of the school year at Waverly Central. He's a middle school student. And from the minute he gets out of my vehicle, he is required to put a mask on his face. He gets to his classroom at 8 a.m., does not leave his classroom until 1 p.m. He has to sit with one teacher for 5 hours. They're not allowed to cross the hallways. They're not allowed to get out of their desks unless they go to the bathroom. And they are unable to get up and get a drink from the public drinking fountain unless they bring a reusable water bottle. Multiple times I've had to, I get a text message from my son, Mom, I'm thirsty. Can you bring me my water bottle? It's just an extra, it's just a minor thing, but it's these incidences where my son isn't allowed to get a drink from the fountain. They don't supply like disposable cups. There's just these. Last year, he was mandated every half hour to use hand sanitizer, alcohol-based hand sanitizer after every classroom when he was in school. They're being subjected to unnecessary measures. His classroom has been quarantined twice, even though only one student was tested positive. They weren't around them for more than 20 minutes. The whole classroom had to be shut down, quarantined. That happened on, at least 2 times with just his classroom. It's happening all over. The kids are healthy, they're active, they're back in sports, but I just feel like these issues that I don't know if I need to join a PTA or call the administration, how to make a movement to get them moving up and out of their classroom. I should be grateful he's in school, but I'm ready to take him out. I don't want, he's had breakdowns. I can't wear this mask anymore, Mom. I can't do it. Like, it's hot, I can't breathe. These children are being subjected to measures that are unnecessary. I don't know who to talk to. I have other moms that are just, we're at a loss because we want our children to be in school and around their friends and to be able to participate in sports. My son is very athletic. He's on the teams, but that's the only reason I send him right now. He's smart. He could do virtual. I don't know what to do. I mean, we still have several weeks left. He sits in one classroom with one teacher. He's just drained at the end of the day. It's been 6 weeks of Spanish. Last semester, it was 6 weeks of English, and then it's going to be 6. It's like, who's setting these, you said it's up to the school. So how do I get a little wedge in there and say, let's break up their day a little bit. Let's give them a teacher at least to come in and give them a different subject to study. Like, how do I get my voice heard? Because it's just not fair to these children. Their minds can only handle so much. They're already aware of so much of this virus. They feel like they're walking contagions. For God's sakes, they are not. They're healthy, active, able children. And I feel powerless right now, and I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I think the best course of action, and you kind of suggested this, is to, while, I'm certainly not in a position, the mayors or the chairwoman are not in a position to tell the superintendent, what the classroom should look like or the water fountain should look like. I think your suggestion was best, right? If there is a group of parents who feel the same way that you do, I think it's incumbent upon you to bring those concerns to the superintendent or the school board. Quite honestly, I mean, they're elected by the people to represent your needs and the needs of your children. Bring those issues to them, and hopefully collectively you can insist on some change. And listen, there may be a reason why the superintendent or the Board of Education are making these decisions that I'm not aware of or you're not aware of. So I think you have to start the conversation there.
I will go there. Thank you.
Okay, I lied. One more question, Emmanuel. Laura, we're going to take Laura's question.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Senator, thank you for this evening. I appreciate it very much. Just to summarize again about the students in the classrooms. I also have a student who's a senior in Owego and an athlete as well. And my concern goes along with the Waverly mom, but on a broader scale, to make some noise, have a voice. Where does it start? So I guess my question to you very quickly is, if the schools are being governed by, or the rules are coming to the court week from the Tioga County Public Health Department, but yet Tioga County Public Health the rules are being sent to them from the state. Where's the best place for our voices to be heard? All of us parents who want our children to fully participate in all of the activities, not just the sports. My son's an athlete as well, but the music programs, the arts programs, the technology programs, all of those things that are really important. They're all getting an education regardless, but all those extra activities are important as well. So where does that voice start for us as parents?
Well, I think, obviously what you're doing tonight is incredibly important, but in terms of the specific issues, I think your voice needs to be heard at the local level, right? With Corey and the Board of Education. Right. So while everything that you said, there is truth in what you said, right? There is guidance that the State Department of Health has sent down to the local health departments, like the 12-foot rule with chorus and band, or like the 6-foot rule with desks. But to the chairwoman's point, every school district in the state of New York was required to submit a plan about how they would educate our students moving forward in this world, in this pandemic world, right? So those plans are currently in place. If we're currently dealing with an issue in Vestal, right, where the parents are incredibly upset with the way the superintendent has the kids coming to school. And there are changes happening there because folks like yourself and Holly and others have really just and Ashley have stepped up and said, you know, we're going to combine our voice here and we're going to ensure that our voice is heard. And I think my suggestion would be that you start those conversations at the local level with Corey. Now, we've heard about the 12-foot rule, 6 versus 3, and we'll take that back to the governor's staff and try to affect those changes. But I think it has to be almost like a multifaceted approach in dealing with the issue.
So let me
Okay,
add
and-
some- can I
Yeah,
add something here too?
Of course.
So public health, they're not going to be able to do anything for it. It's state ed and the Department of Health that's at the state level. But if you reach out to your school board and the superintendent as a group, more than one, they're going to listen to you. And you just keep it constant. You just keep it constant.
Okay, and so I, just to play devil's advocate on that idea, and I appreciate that, thank you. What I'm understanding from the school is that they're awaiting guidelines from Tioga County Public Health to open up, let's say spectators at sports is a big one for us as parents of athletes. So when we go to the school, and I do have a voice within the school currently, I'm being told that they're waiting directive from Tioga County Public Health.
And
So,
that's not exactly how it's going.
okay,
Public health said, you guys come up with a plan. You know, it's very complicated here because supposedly WEGA was supposed to be part of the IAC league, but then they didn't get in. So now they're following staff, but they will get there. I kind of spoke with Corey today, texting. They're working on a plan to allow spectators. It's coming. All the other schools in Tioga County are there. And you just have to be patient.
Okay.
It drives you nuts, but.
yeah, and I mean, that's just a small microcosm of the frustration that all of us parents feel. You know, sports are a very small part of it. It's all of the other activities as well that these students are missing out on. And I'm especially passionate about it as a parent of a senior, my last senior, and missing out on all of those things that are so important that they'll never get back. You know, so it is frustrating, but thank you. I appreciate the time.
And Laura, I think just a couple more thoughts very quickly. And I'm going to take a couple more questions because of hand raised, and I want to make sure I get to as many people as I can. You know, I think it's incredibly important to the chairwoman's point that you know, you're not by yourself, right? Where I'm sure there are other people that feel the same way that you do. You know, we heard from Robert, right? He's a grandfather and he's got concerns about his grandchildren. We're hearing from you, from Ashley, from Holly. It's important that all of you collectively come together and you advance, you know, your thoughts collectively together. I think that would be most helpful, and we're happy to help you as well. And I'm sure the chairwoman is as well in terms of having a conversation with some of these superintendents about some of the issues that are being raised. Okay.
Excellent. Yes, thank you very much.
All right, Manny, please unmute Harrison. And then the last question I'm going to take is from Michael Hoffman. But Harrison, please.
Fred, my name is Harrison from the town of Richford, and my big thing is local roads matter. The CHIPS program, the Pave New York program, there hasn't been any increase in those since 2003, 2000 something or other. And last year they took 20% away. What's your thoughts? We're going to get the CHIPS money this year. We're going to get the 20% that they took back. These local communities, they need it. If you have a bad accident on any of the state roads, the first thing they do is dump it off onto a local road, whether it's up to snuff or not. And so without this chip money and stuff to keep those roads as emergency avenues, it really hurts. And that's just my thought. We
This
can't
is-
get together with you and voice our opinion about local roads because of COVID. So when you said you're having this town meeting, I figured I'd voice my opinion.
Brother, if you know me, you know that I've always stood with you in the local road matter issue. This is why we're fighting so hard for parity, right? When you're talking about putting billions and billions of dollars, 70% more into the MTA region than you are the DOT region, that is highly problematic, right? I've been arguing, and sometimes I get some pushback on this, that our roads are just as important as the roads in the 5 boroughs. And what my friends across the aisle forget to realize is that even folks in the 5 boroughs have access to CHIPS dollars. And so I'm going to send you, I text the staff, I'm going to email you a document that we sent to the governor and legislative leaders. If we got $6 billion or less, we said that CHIPS should be funded at this amount of money. If we got $6 billion or more, it should be funded at this amount of money. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised because we got 12.8 billion. Let's hope the governor does the right thing and funds these programs where they need to be. And you know, Mayor, Chairwoman, I'm sure you have thoughts about CHIPS and the importance of that.
Can I ask
Oh,
one other
Harrison.
thing though?
Yeah, go ahead, of course.
The extreme winter recovery, it's been brought to my attention that they're not going to put that any part into the budget. And also that one big storm we had in December, the counties didn't have enough to get state aid or FEMA aid for that. And so to recover some of that money from this big storm that we handled, is there going to be extreme winter recovery money?
Well, we have advanced the position that they should in fact fund extreme winter recovery in both of those scenarios, both at 6 billion and lower than 6 and above 6. So here's my suggestion to you is Senator Tim Kennedy is the chairman of the Transportation Committee. He is my Democratic colleague from the Buffalo area. Everybody should put an immense amount of pressure, email, telephone calls to Senator Kennedy. And you should tell him, put your money where your mouth is. You can't say that local roads matter unless you fully fund the CHIPS program.
If one of these people from downstate is coming up to Cornell University or one of those places and they are going along and there's an accident on Route 79 or a major route fair and they close that road down, they're going to put them off into one of our roads. And so our local roads do matter to them if there's an accident or a problem, because they will put them right onto it. Don't matter whether it's a tractor trailer that's way over limit, that's what they're going to use for a detour. Those roads do matter.
They are, and I've long said this, they are just as important as any road or bridge in the 5 boroughs. So you can count on my advocacy as we move forward.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, Mr.
Senator?
Hoff. Yes, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Very quickly, if in that email that your staff sends to Harrison, and he is spot on, if they could send it to me also, I will pass it on to Council of Government. I think that's a very effective tool, and thank you for that. If in fact you're able to send that out, or your staff is able to send it out.
Yep, to the staff listening on the line, can we get that CHIPS letter to both of the mayor and Harrison, please?
Will do.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Mr. Hoffman.
Hello, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. As an educator in education, I work at Tioga and Binghamton, and I know for a fact most of our kids would gladly like to have all students back and as soon as possible, especially in the special ed department area. And I know some of the other departments, we have talked about it as educators for quite a period of time. We would like to have all the students back and have them back, in a safe environment. as an educator, it just, yeah, we would like to have them all back in the house. It's not the same. I agree very much as, with the parents. I agree as a parent myself. I'm with a child and doing remote learning all the time. It's not the same as in person. So, the sooner we can get through all of this and get back to a normal, I think, yeah, I know, quote unquote, it'll be a new normal, but, I would like to see it happen too, as much, even on an education level, to be able to get all of our students back into school. That's just a personal comment.
Thank you, Michael, for your service to our children and for your comment. And I mean it this time. This is the last question. Barbara Roberts, please.
Okay.
Manny, if you'd be so kind.
I'm sorry, I think we lost Barbara. I'm looking for her, but
We did. I think we may have as well. All right. I'm sorry about that. Madam Chairwoman, any closing thoughts?
No, this is great. Thank you so much, everybody that participated. Let's do it again.
Sounds great. Mayor Tornatore?
My comments are the same as the Madam Chair. These are fantastic. I'm honored just to be part of this, to hear the comments and to my gratitude for Senator Akshar and everyone else that's here for your interest in good government. That's all what we look for is good government. But it's more complicated than it seems. So thank you to all.
Kelvin, thank you for your message here. Appreciate you. Our friends in organized labor are doing great work throughout the Southern Tier. So Kelvin, keep up the good work, and you know this better than anybody. You definitely have a friend in the people on the line here. So thanks for all that you guys are doing. Mayor David.
Yes, thank you, Senator. Appreciate the opportunity to be included in this. Regardless of the fact that I'm in Binghamton, if anyone ever wants to give me a call or email me, please feel free to do so. My contact information is on the City of Binghamton website, cityofbinghamton.com. I'd be happy to talk or answer any questions. Thank you for all the questions tonight. I don't know if Harrison is still on, but I love the fact that he asked about chips. I love the fact that he knew exactly what chips was, the fact that the extreme recovery money wasn't included. I testified in front of the joint session of the Senate and the Assembly on a number of issues, and that was one of them. That has remained flat for a long period of time. Neighborhood roads, a top question that I get, and I'm sure Mayor Tornatore would agree as well. And state aid has been flat for a decade as well. But regardless, this was a great discussion tonight, and I just appreciate the opportunity to have been included. And I'm here if you ever need anything in the future. Thank you, Senator.
You're very welcome, Mayor. Again, it's great to be with you, and I'm glad that you took some time out of your busy schedule to join us out here in Tioga County. I give a big shout out to my friend Matt Brown. I see he's on the line as well, former colleague in law enforcement. Appreciate you, Matt, your friendship, and everything that we've been through throughout the years. Emmanuel, I'm sorry, Mrs. Roberts is back on the line. I want to take her question, and then we're going to end for the night.
Okay, Barbara, if you could just unmute yourself, please. Barbara, if you could just please hit the unmute button. We'd love to take your question. Oh, there we go.
Here.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
Here. There we go.
I'm sorry about that.
I'm sorry about
Manny, could you do me a favor and mute her, please?
Let's try this one more time. If we don't, Barbara, we will reach out to you personally and get an answer to your question.
Fair enough.
Barbara? Sorry about that. I guess we're having technical difficulties.
Barbara, we are going to reach out to you directly and get your question, and so we can get you an answer. I'm sorry that we're having some technical issues. So I just want to thank everybody again for joining us this evening. It's been a good night, 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think it was a productive 2 hours and 15 minutes. If we didn't answer your questions, please, Manny, put the share screen back up for me, please. If you'd be so kind. If we did not answer your question, we can be reached at either of these email addresses or telephone numbers. You know, having these town halls, in my humble opinion, is so incredibly important. You know, hearing from the constituency, being able to respond to your concerns or your questions is of utmost importance to me, my entire team, and clearly to the chairwoman and the mayors and the legislator that were on the line tonight. So please feel free to reach out at any time. I'm really looking forward to getting back to doing these in person.
Yeah.
And I hope once the weather gets a little bit better, we can do that. And Chairwoman, I would look forward to being with you out in Tioga County and doing one of these in person as soon as we possibly can.
Yeah.
So thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Again, feel free to reach out. Stay well, stay healthy, and God bless everybody. Thanks so much.